French and Deli are the aggressive civs, and English Roos, sorry, are definitely the more defensive civs. So we're gonna probably be seeing a lot more aggression on the Puppypaw side.
All right. Now, of course, one of the big talking points over here is that we are playing on the brand new Season 5 patch. So we do have the brand new Delhi with the Ghazi Raiders, with the nerf to the Rus Militia, all these things come into play. How do you feel like these things will impact the set that we are about to see?
Yeah, they're definitely going to impact it. I think the most important change that's going to impact 2v2s is going to be the manga change, the Keshek. While the Rus Militia is important, and a lot of other changes as well, I think the Keshek in 2v2s is going to have the biggest impact. Just because having an extra Knight Civ is very critical for 2v2s, and I think in a lot of these matchups, you're going to see Knights dominate the 2v2 meta. At least that's how I think the matchup's going to go. If these players have a different opinion, I'd love to see it. But the first game we see 2 Knight Civs starting out, so I think at least these teams have the same idea as well.
Well, I guess the big question now is, who do you think is going to win this set? It's a best of 5, long set. We have a large variety of maps. Who do you think has the edge?
Well, and that's what I think makes this tournament so exciting, right? The teams are very equal. Like, if it was 16 pros in a normal tournament, it was BC versus Seed 16, I'd say BC, right? But this tournament is why I find it so interesting. I think either team could win this. I do favor Puppypaw's team, but I think both teams have a good chance. Could easily go to a best of 5. So, a game 5.
Okay, we just have 15 seconds left to go. As usual, in the observer booth, it will be the lovely Vodka. As we're getting ready for game number 1, we have 4 sets for you from the round of 16th today, 4 from Sunday, so we will broadcast all of the round of 16th games. Next Saturday, we will have the 4 quarterfinals, and then the last day of the event, next Sunday, will be the semifinals and the grand finals. We're ready for game number 1 here on Dry Arabia. We're jumping into a Rus and English versus French and Delhi matchup. Pause champ. Any moment now.
Waiting to jump in.
It's the calm before the storm, man.
It's okay, we're just going to be seeing gathering sheep as well anyway in the first minute or so. I'm actually curious to see, I would assume French would be the one to go double scout because they have Rus on their team, so you kind of need to go double scout to pick up that extra sheep, as well as kill the deer. Delhi doesn't really want to go double scout, right? They don't need to either.
Yeah, that's a fair point. All right, I'm hearing that it's a couple more seconds left to go, but jumping into game number 1, it's gonna be a fun one for sure. Indeed, here we go. So, first game of the Afreeca Duos event, and we are welcoming with the warm colors Puppypaw and LaSh in purple and red, featuring the French and the Delhi actually. On the other side, it is going to be Anotand and Dark with the cold colors Steel and Blue, and they will have the English and the Rus. With me is the ever lovely Whammo 1, brother of Puppypaw, also will be featured in this tournament as a player. We've had a bit of a discussion about this Civilization matchup here in the pregame, but as you said, one of the things that will be interesting to look at is how the Knights will be utilized in this matchup.
Oh, definitely. So Nito's team has Dark Age Aggression, and Dark Age Aggression makes Knights, at least on the French side, a little bit more difficult to get out, because if you have Manga Spearmen on the French gold mine, right, you won't be able to produce those Knights. But in this game, LaSh is going to be able to produce Knights instantly when he goes up to H2, so I think in the Knight regard, the French players are definitely going to have an advantage here.
Right off the get-go, we do have a double scout play here for LaSh. On the other side, Anotand is also adding his own extra scouts. Of course, when it comes to the Rusian team game settings, one of the big takeaways is that with more players spawning, you also have more hunt spawning. So getting to that 250, 300, possibly 400 bounty is a lot easier to accomplish. And look at that, Dark is opening with farms but no mill. How do you feel about that with the English?
That is very strange, right? You're not getting the bonus? I'm a little confused myself. I guess he just wants the farms, but maybe he has a different idea than what we have. I mean, I'm sure he does.
Now, one thing to note about Dark is that he had a bit of an incursion into AoE 4 about a year ago, but he was primarily an AoE 2 player, and he went back to play AoE 2 for a year. In fact, he just came back to AoE 4 like a month and a half or so ago. Now, he has actually had a really good performance in the Silver League of the Elite Classic, but one of the things that was apparent as we watched him play was that he's still somewhat inexperienced with the mechanics of AoE 4. I hate to say this, but there is a chance that those farms are there because they've discussed in the team that English need to farm early, but he may not actually know that the farms are buffed by the mill. It sounds crazy when you look at a high-level game, but I can tell you I've seen some surprising things, to say the least, from Dark when I saw his games. And speaking of surprising, he is going to open with the Abbey.
Well, that is very surprising, especially considering you're playing with Roos, right? Going for Abby, when you already have a Night Civ, that's... I mean, that's an interesting... Maybe you want to go Fast Caster, go Horseman. We'll have to see what he does with that, but interesting move to begin with.
Now, one question I do have to you, because I genuinely do not know the answer to this. Does the English King have any effect on allies, or is it just your own units?
That's a good question. You know, I'm not actually 100% sure myself, but I would bet that it does have an effect on allies, and the same as with Kurotai, right? It has an effect. The manga arrow buff has an effect. So I would bet that the king does, yeah. So maybe that's the move, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, now it looks like, as you said, one of the intriguing things with the Abbey over here is that when you have a 2v2 setting, oftentimes you see players playing a combination of archers and cavalry. And in those settings, the English player is basically always the archer's player with the longbows. Now with the Abbey out there and crowning a king, longbows will be delayed at least. And on the other side, you see a lot more conventional setup, so to say. Puppy is going for the Tower of Victory, possibly for archers. And LaSh is just going with the School of Cavalry, no surprise over there.
Yeah, and he will definitely need to make archers being the English, right? But maybe the king is just for getting some map control, especially versus French. It could help a lot to get on the French's gold. You're missing out on two archery ranges, which could be... It does hurt you, right? But against Delhi, you don't really need to make units until 8 minutes, which is when you need to get on those sacred sites. But for now, he's going to go with the king, and probably go to the French, I would assume.
Interesting timing on this king, if you think about it. LaSh has just reached Feudal Age, so he is yet to get a Knight out. And this king, this is a tanky unit. In fact, he actually has a Knight out already, but you see that King is also a pretty tanky unit, has 16 base attack, so it could do a lot of damage to the early gold miners. It looks like it's going to hit the Delhi player, though.
Yeah, just scouting, it seems. Delhi obviously has nobody on gold at the moment, but I think he's moving towards the French now. And the fact is, I didn't know this about the Season 5 changes, but the King got a huge buff. Its cost was reduced by 100 resources, already massive, and it actually heals out of combat. Which just means you can stay around their base a lot longer, even if it gets damaged, right?
Yeah, and you see, it kind of acts as a proxy knight. Does a little less damage, but it accomplishes the same thing. And as you mentioned, if it heals by default, it's like a chivalry knight, where you don't even have to get the chivalry tech itself. Now, because it has a slightly lower damage output, it's a little bit trickier to intercept villagers with it. Especially if the Delhi player gets the Textiles upgrade, which is something that comes for free for them. And it looks like Puppy is going to just play into a couple of spears to defend against this.
Yeah, I think that's the correct move, especially since he's playing against Roos as well, right? And Roos is going double stable, so that is not surprising. You're going to need those spearmen. And PuppyPaw is actually walling up. A very good time to wall up, just securing resources, those two berries at the bottom of the map. Yeah, very nice walls, I would say.
Looks like on the other side we do have knights being masked up by Anotand. Now we have a mill for the farms, so all is well for the farming eco of Dark. In retrospective, now that he's setting up those farms prematurely, it means that he's gonna have a lot more consistent food eco. It's not like he's going to run out of sheep and then he suddenly needs to transition to a lot of farms, but obviously it's an investment at the beginning.
Yeah, obviously, I do myself really do like the early middle play, especially versus Delhi, because you're probably going to be on 1TC. So we see a few Knight charges here. Might get a Villager, probably not. Almost.
Yeah, he could have gotten a villager, just ended up disengaging. Took a lot of damage on the knight, however, so at the end of the day, no kills on the villagers, but that knight is pretty much dead. Now, spearmen are pushing forward, and that's second knight going down here from Anotand. LaSh also building up his knight numbers, and army is looking better and better as we speak here for Puppypaw and LaSh. As you said, the king is healing back up though, so that king can once again become a factor soon.
Yeah, and the sacred sites are going to be a factor as well. Puppypaw moving out to that far sacred site on the map. Might be walling it up as well. We'll have to see in a second, but oh, very nice timing. He should be capturing the sacred site. The wrong woman is moving out, but probably won't be able to stop that.
Yeah, the longbows are just so far out, and you do have to consider the fact that those longbows are slow.
Oh.
If you get caught off guard, oh, there goes the king. But yeah, if you get caught off guard by a couple of knights, that could be devastating. You see, Dark doesn't have a single spearman guarding those longbows. It's not like when you play a 1v1 and you have some spearmen guarding your longbows. Those guys are sitting ducks in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I was wondering where LaSh's army is, but he is here to support, so I think they will be able to secure this. Well, that's a rather wrong moment, I must say. I'm not sure how this fight will go, but could be interesting if they decide to take it.
Yeah, obviously French Knights slightly better than the Rus Knights over there, but you do have the longbows to pick off the spears with, and this is something that Pappy and LaSh know. They will have to call back his forces. Scholar is in a bit of a danger here, and you see they are charging in, pushing away the Knights. This is some nice micro over there. They just try to disengage, but they do not want to overcommit. As I'm saying, they actually do. Here come the militias as well. The scout on the south will get picked off. And this is a delicate micro here. You see Spearman will be picked up, but here come the archers, and those are the game changers. Puppy appears with 20 archers on the field in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, those 20 archers are really going to be the backbone of this army, and I think without those, they probably would have lost this fight. The militia are being cleaned up as well now, so it's looking better and better for Puppypaw's team here. LaSh obviously has a few knights as well. They're going to push back this army.
Yeah, the knight numbers for a French player are rising steadily. You see, he's up to 9 knights already. Other side, it's only 6 for the Rus player. Militias have been popped before by Anotand, so he doesn't have reinforcements. And now you see those longbows, slow to move, no escort. They're being chased down by the knights. They're being chased down by the archers that move faster. So, to a certain extent, Dark is lucky to get out of this one alive.
Well, they did decap the sacred site, so that's not nothing, right? Puppypaw is still on 0 sacred sites. He's might retake this one, but for the time being, on 0.
Yeah, that's very true. No sacred sites. There's basically one sacred site being kept to the north. Now there is a second one popped to the south. No one there to contest it. Army numbers looking pretty close. Slight advantage for Puppypaw and LaSh. But once they have the sacred sites, the momentum will start swinging in the favor of the Delhi team.
Yeah, very true. I think...
Look at that, though. Sorry to interrupt. That's one of the things that you get from the Abbey over here. The Knights of Anotand are being healed by Dark's Abbey. That's a great use of it, kind of to make up for the lack of ability to heal your Knights with the Chivalry.
Yeah, I missed that as well. You can actually send your units towards the Abbey, right? You don't even need the King, so that's something interesting to note. Well, I'd be curious to see upgrades, because the next fight, if... I think English, probably, most importantly, probably needs their upgrades, especially against French Knights. You need that +1. Does he have those yet?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, he does have the +1, which is very important. Could get the +1 defense as well, but not as important.
Yeah, it will become a factor once we have a lot of archers from Puppy, and actually Puppy does have a lot of archers now. 35 is the count. Longbow numbers rising steadily though as well, and that's a nice raid from Anotand. Double towers, actually triple towers to protect all these outlying resources. Hard for Anotand to raid. LaSh was prepared for this.
Yeah, oh, he's gonna get a knight or two maybe here with these longmen. They're just so deadly with the range. Hmm. A lot of things going on the map at the moment. The ball being taken.
Yeah, the 2v2s get very chaotic once you go beyond the 10-minute mark. A lot of things happening. Sometimes our observers have trouble keeping up with 1v1s, all the happenings in those games. 2v2s just get even more chaotic, and then imagine how a 4v4 would look like. Just chaos all over the map. But you see, it looks like Anotand and Dark will be grouping up over here. No French Knights to reinforce these archers. They're caught in the middle of the field here. King also trying to charge in, but needs to be careful not to get picked off. Knights from LaSh are nowhere to be found. He's got 15 of them, but they're not here.
And this next fight is going to be very important in deciding the tempo of the game. If Puppy and LaSh can win a fight and get onto some of those sacred sites, they're going to be in a good position. But at the moment, I think they don't want to commit yet. Fighting against how many? 51 Wam women on Dark side. Very scary,
Yeah.
I must say.
It's very different from the 1v1s, right? In 1v1s, when you only go for longbows, there is a weakness that the opponent can exploit. But in a 2v2 like this, when you have a front line of knights, it's a lot more difficult to punish those longbows. Although here, without knight support, it looks like those archers take a good fight. With the knights arriving, though, archers will be called back, and that's where the longer range of the longbows could come into play.
Yeah, and 1Puppypaw tried to pick off a few archers there. He did do that, but taking this fight, it's very... I have no idea who's gonna win. It's very all over the place.
Well, the king goes down. French knights are jumping on the longbows, and you see knights from the Rus player Anotand are disappearing. Archers close the distance. They are isolating one of these groups of longbows to the south. They're pursuing to the north as well. They do have the buff of the Tower of the Victory, but as the reinforcements coming from Anotand, looks like this is a slightly better fight for Puppy and LaSh, but still, they will have to retreat. They will clean up this longbow group to the south, however.
Yeah, Puppy and LaSh did a great job taking this fight, I think. I think LaSh had the knight advantage, and they really pushed that into killing as many wrong women as possible, really taking down that wrong woman mass, which you need to do, I think.
And that longbow mass took some heavy casualties. It's down to 26.
Yeah, and now we're just kind of waiting on them to get sacred sites again, which not immediate, but we'll need to do, especially considering the English player probably has 20 or so farms that are just kind of getting benefits on their team, whereas Puppy is definitely not on farms and just exhausting out all the berries on the map.
Yeah, so basically sustainability when it comes to the food eco is on the side of the English player right now. But he needs to keep these longbows alive, and you see archers, they do move faster, plus the knights are pursuing as well. Anotand is nowhere to be found, and these longbows are taking heavy casualties.
Yeah, definitely. These Wrong Women, the backbone of the army, is really suffering at the moment. This big archer mass by 1Puppypaw is taking them out one by one, and very, very tough for Dark and Anotand.
Oh, Lumberjack exposed now.
Yep.
Longbows will have to fight, but villagers will be caught in the crossfire, and as the knights arrive, things are getting dicey for Dark here. Don't forget, he needs a lot of wood to consistently produce those longbows, so losing Lumberjacks over here would be a disaster. And it looks like Puppy and LaSh see an opening. They do dive in. Longbow numbers looking rather slim here, but they do have the Network of Castles buff. Might be enough to hold this off for the time being.
Yeah, I think it will. At some point, you're not going to be able to push anything into the English TC with that Network of Castles. It's so strong, right? And 1Puppypaw and LaSh back off now. Still don't have the Sacred Sites. I guess going Tower of Victory, you don't have that many scholars to your advantage, so you can't really, once you get map control, push all over the map and take those sites.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You see, Vodka pointing out we have one scholar on the field for Puppy only.
Yeah, no, that's good to point out, because Tower of Victory, you're paying 130 for scholars, you're not really going to have that many, right?
Yeah, if you have Sacred Sites consistently, you do, but that wasn't the case for 1Puppypaw here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that king not going to get the scholar. Sacrificed his effort for it.
A lot of kings going down here for Dark, and those are somewhat pricey units. You mentioned that the cost was reduced, but it's still 100 food, 100 gold, so losing it like that does hurt.
Yeah, it hurts for sure, and you have to reproduce it, right? From the Abbey of Kings. You might forget it even, like I might, but I'm gonna see another fight here. It does look very good for Puppy and LaSh again. Look at the Archer mass by Puppy. We have 61 to 40 long women. It's gonna be very tough for them to take this fight. With no network of castles as well either, right?
Yeah, and this is a slower army, means that the archers can't catch them. Knights are also coming in. There are 6 knights on the field for Anotand, but they aren't helping over here. And you see, Dark knows he cannot get away. He's going to stand and fight, but this will result in the entire army being cleaned up. He's losing so many of his longbows. Puppypaw barely any casualties in this fight.
Yeah, they're doing a very good job at cleaning up Dark's army. I think they are a little bit weaker on the eco side, I'd say, but they're definitely taking advantage of the large Archer mass that they do have at the moment. Yeah, as Vodka is pointing out, they have almost double their units at the moment.
Yeah, now, with the knights from Anotand separated from these longbows, the knights from LaSh are having a field day, just pushing back the longbows by themselves. We have some raids going into the Ro16 now. Militias will be picked off in an instant by the archers. And you see this archer mass is creeping up on the enemy base quickly. Once again, the king is the one that's rallied to decap the sacred side. That guy is paying for its price, that's for sure.
Yeah, I wonder if he just has the Avian Kings just rallied to the sacred side and he's just throwing him at it. Oh, seeing a few villagers get caught out by LaSh here. That's 20 or so gold miners. That's a lot of villagers, actually.
That's a lot, and there was no defensive tower out there. If you go back to LaSh's base, you see double towers on the gold. Here, there was none. Anotand was kind of playing into just being the aggressor and not being raided. But now that he's under attack, he's got no defense. And you see, as Vodka is pointing out, LaSh was very defensive on his initial resources at the beginning, and Anotand couldn't raid him. However, Anotand doesn't have a lot of defensive towers, so LaSh can be a lot more successful with these raids.
Yeah, and I think Anotand may be building a tower there now. Oh, he's building a tower at the bottom side as well. If you look at the gold mines, Anotand actually has, I would say, very bad gold mines. All of them are forward. He has no bad gold mines, which is another bad thing about his spawn, which, you know, is not the biggest deal, but you really have to build those towers if you do have this spawn.
Yeah, and the knights, or the production of the knights, isn't going to be consistent because of that. You see, he's falling behind in knight numbers compared to LaSh. Dark is back to 42 longbows, though, and that is not something that should be underestimated. Do you think he should creep up with a couple of towers closer to the sacred site so he extends his network of castles buff?
You know, I would really prefer if he did do that and maybe just play passive. Like, you could probably just allow Puppypaw to have a sacred site or two at this point. You do have the English farm advantage, right? And I think allowing him to get a sacred site is not the end of the game. Just utilize your advantages rather than trying to punish him as much as possible. Yep. He still has these farms, right? And he's making even more.
Yeah, some knights roaming around here from Anotand, but those towers, they would just repel them. And every time you do take damage on these knights for Anotand, you're going to have to rally them back to the abbey of your teammate to heal them up. It takes a lot of time to do it.
Yeah, it does. He's actually... I mean, he's 5 knights behind the French bro, and being 5 knights behind the French bro does not feel good, right? You want to keep every single one of your knights alive if you can. Another king going down.
That just feels like a rinse and repeat scenario when you see one tower is up there for Anotand on the gold, but it cannot shield all the villagers that are out there. A lot of casualties now on the eco department. Puppy and LaSh now possessing a villager lead of 12.
Yeah, indeed, and you see this strategy in 2v2 a lot. LaSh going for the eco in their base, and Puppypaw just on the defensive 100%. If Puppypaw can defend this, they'll be in a very good spot, because LaSh is getting a lot of eco damage, right?
Indeed, he does. In fact, for the last 5 or so minutes, there was basically no success from the team of Dark and Anotand to do any eco damage. Now, these archers getting caught off guard a little over here by the longbows and the knights. They do a good job stepping backwards, though. They pick off most of the knights, which leaves these longbows pretty much without a meat shield. There are 2 towers over here to help out as well. Villagers will garrison inside. And somewhere on this map, there is supposed to be a group of knights from LaSh coming in to reinforce. They aren't here yet, however. So these longbows, they could try cleaning this army up, but it's going to be difficult against 2 towers.
Well, it will be difficult, but he could probably move to another spot. And I'm getting a little worried for Puppypaw at the moment. He is actually, for the first time in a long time, outnumbered in archers. Dark has 75 longbow men, and Puppypaw has 52 archers, so we'll have to see how he takes these fights now. And I think this might even get cleaned up.
Yeah, this is dicey for Puppypaw. Now, Anotand is in a world of playing right now with all those knights raiding him. He only has one knight out there. But as you said, Puppypaw has taken a lot of casualties here. Question is, what can Dark do against those knights from LaSh? Because as these knights arrive, suddenly this battle feels a lot more even. The king will once again get cleaned up, and this is a trade of armies, which is not necessarily great for Puppy, but when it comes to the context of the entire game, this is great for Puppy and LaSh, because LaSh now has a bunch of knights that his opponents has no answer to.
Yeah, and this is what Puppypaw needed, right? He needed like 5 or so knights just to come and kill everything, and that's exactly what happens, and that's the 2v2 collaboration working together at its finest, I think.
Yeah, it's the positional warfare, right? You need to be at the right place at the right time. Now the knights come in, they do start cleaning up the longbows as Castle Age is on the way for Dark, but this might come at a terrible time. He's aging up, but they do not have any army at all at this point. Anotand is at 3 knights, 4 militias. The longbows are getting cleaned up, and a lot of villagers are moving to the front over here. They need to be very cautious with this indeed. Dark is going to think twice of that, and he cancels the landmark, will replace it with the white tower.
Well, that is going to be very difficult to get up if Puppypaw and LaSh actually spot that. I guess they don't, but they have almost triple the army at the moment, so they could have definitely killed that, or stopped it from going up.
Knights now commit against the tower as well. Compound of the defender on the way for Puppypaw, so both of the archer players will be going up to Castle Age. Naturally, with the compound, you will start unlocking the keeps, the cheaper keeps those are. You will start working towards the village fortresses upgrade. So it's going to get a lot easier for Puppypaw to pull ahead in the eco in the next few minutes. Plus, of course, it's going to be a lot easier as well for them to secure the map control they already have.
Yeah, they definitely should be doing that. I think Anotand is struggling a lot with gold. He is consistently getting pulled off of gold on this top gold mine, and he does have a lot on the bottom one. It's definitely very exposed, right? That big gold mine at the bottom.
It is, and to a certain extent, this is a night war on the north. Dark isn't really helping out over there. He's focusing to the south. And in a night war, if you fall behind in knights, if you get pushed away from the gold, it's extremely difficult to recover.
Oh, 100%, yeah. Falling behind in knights is one of the worst things that can happen in 2v2. I've experienced it myself. It almost feels like Dark could maybe go some English knights as well to help Anotand catch up, because you just can't come back.
Yeah, now the knight numbers are looking 24-3. Massive advantage now on the side of LaSh, and once he gets to Castle Age, these knights will become even tankier. In fact, at this point, that's something that he could start thinking about, given how good the map control they have, how much damage they've managed to do on the eco of Anotand, and how unable Dark is to punish them for a possible Castle Age for the French player.
Yeah, I think I would like to see Anotand build some walls, because these knights are just kind of running rampage all over Anotand's base, and he just has no walls to defend it whatsoever. Puppypaw and LaSh are actually building pretty aggressive walls themselves, but not on the other side.
Yeah, here comes an aggressive keep on the front by Puppypaw. A couple of villagers will be sacrificed, but now this is a strong point. It is going to deny the gold from the English player. Also denies a forest, and I think Dark may have depleted most of the wood available to him, so consistently producing those longbowmen will become a challenge soon.
Yeah, and it does appear that Dark doesn't have that many gold mines either, and not a lot of wood mines, as Vodka's pointing out. He does have these bottom ones, but if he cuts through those soon, he won't have that many left. Another keep going up. Oh, whose keep is that? Oh, that's Puppypaw's keep, I think.
Yeah, that's a Puppy keep indeed. He's going to try and secure the sacred sites. You already have 3 towers over here, plus a bunch of archers. Villagers will dance around a little just to be sure that they do not get picked off, but getting that castle up should not be a big issue for Puppy.
No, especially with these knights, right? I mean, Anotand has 8 compared to LaSh's 25. And he's cast rage, right? So even stronger knights.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I don't even have to look to be able to tell that LaSh is going up with the Royal Institute. He wants to get Royal Bloodlines. He has gotten the veterancy on the Knights already. Can't hold settles possibly as well. And yeah, there's the Royal Institute. In fact, halfway in is Royal Bloodlines already.
Yeah, that's like the first upgrade. If you can afford it, you're cricking, right? They're just gonna make these knights unkillable for the wrong man. And he's already pushing into the space. The wrong man almost getting outmatched by the knights at this point, but a few more come to defend, so Rash is gonna back off and probably wait for that upgrade.
As crazy as it sounds, the army numbers are actually favoring Anotand and Dark, but that's a little deceiving because most of those are just longbows. And at this point, as you said, those knights with Royal Bloodlines will be virtually unkillable for the French player. Although, credit to Dark, he's doing a great job holding this. He's pushing back this keep. He's still alive, he's got a good farming eco, he's got 80 longbows on the field, but they need to get Anotand back into this game, otherwise they don't have a shot.
Yeah, 100%. Anotand is still trapped in the feudal age. He needs to start, I mean, like you said, getting back into the game, getting some gold mines. He is the top one, but he really needs to secure his base. I mean, these knights from Rash just keep coming in and in and in, and he has nothing to protect himself, so...
He is walling up on the north, though, and he has dropped the second town center, so that path to recovery is now somewhat open to him. The issue that they face now is that 3 sacred sites are under the control of Puppy's team, although one of them on the south is being decapped. There's actually 2 new TCs having been added by Anotand. So he knows that he lost a lot of villagers. He's also behind because he's facing up against the French. And given that they aren't being attacked, they are just trying to use this extra time to catch up. And honestly, Dark is sitting on 101 longbows. If they have some walls and if they can funnel the enemies to a choke point, this is gonna be awfully difficult for Puppy and LaSh to push.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just have to point out that King capturing the sacred site, I almost laughed because it's happened again and again, but it really should not happen in this case. It's behind like 2 stone walls. Well, the 1 stone wall and the wood wall.
Trebs are now moving out towards those keeps. There are 103 longbows. Holy smokes. Now we have mangonels coming up for Puppypaw, so you're gonna have to be cautious, but that King is just doing the same thing for the last 20 minutes, I swear. Going in, decapping the sacred site, dying, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, you can actually hear the death time. Sorry, the death sound. There's a death sound for the King if you have good ears. You can hear him die.
Anotand tried to sneak a villager on the right flank. I wonder if it was the case of just trying to save that will, or if he wanted to sneak a villager into the corner, maybe for some sneaky stables, kind of just make the game a little bit more chaotic. Whichever the case, it was intercepted, so for the time being, trenches have been dug. You see a clear separation or clear line of separation in the middle of the map between the 2 teams.
Yeah, and it's really just, it's almost like a 1v2 that Dark is trying to play at the moment while Anotand catches up with that triple TC, the walls, etc. This is the point where I'd really like to see Puppypaw try to push the advantage they have. He is going to lose the traps, which is a big cost. Like, that's like, what, almost 2k resources? Very expensive.
What's more alarming for Dark is that he has taken a big mango hit, so many of his longbows are right now heavily damaged. Makes it a lot more legitimate for these knights to dive in. Looks like we will have a transition into some spears from Dark. You see, he needs to be very cautious with those longbows now. He's getting close to the Abbey, though, and he does have the White Tower nearby as well, but clock is ticking, and Anotand is still in Feudal Age, still only 3 knights available to him.
Yeah, well, Dark is actually sending Anotand resources. He's really trying to help him get back to this game. And he's actually built a 4th TC. Interesting.
Well, he needs to recover, so I don't blame him for it. It's probably better to just go full boom instead of trying to play around with 5 knights instead of 4.
No, I agree with you. I think probably should have been done a little bit earlier, because at the moment he has nothing to defend knights, right? So he probably needed to do this, probably to need to build an extra CC, some walls, a lot earlier than he did. But Puppypaw and Rash are now pushing into the base. This is going to be a difficult push for them to hold.
Oh, you gotta dodge the mango shots here. This is the problem for Dark here. He's got 2 Springolds in queue, but none on the field right now. And without those, he cannot fight with these longbows, but if he doesn't fight, his teammate is going to get punished for this. Would be lovely to see him expand his network of castles aura, though, because he has been fighting without that for the last 15 minutes.
Well, that and he needs some spring ults, because without spring ults, you're not going to kill those mangoes, and those mangoes are going to obliterate your Wrongman. Without spring ults, you really cannot take the fight, I think, and Anotand's just going to die.
Anotand in a world of pain right now. And we have 52 knights, by the way. We haven't really been talking about this. It's nice and everything for Dark to have 100 longbows, but those won't hold against 50 knights. That's just a huge mass. And at this point, we're looking at a landmark snipe, by the way. Anotand is having his initial TC contested. The Kremlin is under attack. And with only 95 villagers for the team of Anotand and Dark, it feels like they will just tap out. Puppy and LaSh secure game number 1 here. And I guess, looking back at this game, what do you think was the turning point between these two teams? What made Puppy and LaSh prevail over Anotand's team?
Well, I think it was just the constant pickoff of Wrongwoman. I think Anotand and Dark were trying to be a little bit too aggressive. They could have definitely let PuppyPaw get a site or two. They had the eco advantage. They really did not need to push out as far as they did. And you saw throughout the game that Dark's Wrongwomen were getting picked off a number after number. Like, he slowly just did not have the Wrongwoman count as PuppyPaw did. Yeah, and there's a few points there, actually, at 16 minutes, at about 10 minutes, where Dark's army is just not trading very well.
Yeah, knight numbers were never really high for Anotand. You see the big difference between the two teams. LaSh slowly built up his knight mass, compared to Anotand, who always struggled with those numbers. Then it culminated in some raids, and eventually this just turned into a 2v1. LaSh and PuppyPaw finish it, which means that they take game number 1 in this best of 5 as we take a look at the map selection of Anotand and Dark.
Yeah, and that's another thing about this tournament, right? You cannot repeat civs, so you have to play a unique civ every single game, which means you really have to plan out what civ you're going to play on which map. And looking at this, Chinese and English on jousting fields against Mongols and Abbasid. Not too surprising, I think, except for the Mongol pick. I wonder what they're going to try with that.
Indeed, one of the things to look at here is that, as you said, all the civilizations are available for both teams, but you cannot repeat a civ. So what you see right next to the draft label is the civilization or the list of civilizations that have already been used. So we're going to have the Chinese and English coming up for Puppy and LaSh against the Mongols and Abbasids of Anotand and Dark. On a map that is vastly different from any of the other maps in this tournament, you do have the two players separated from each other. Who do you think does that favor?
That is a good question. I think PuppyPaw and LaSh might be slightly the strong person 1v1. PuppyPaw probably, I would say, has an advantage over Anotand, and LaSh actually did play against Dark in the Silver League, and he won, which I want to point out. But they're both very strong players, so it could go either way. I think Anotand and Dark are probably going to try to utilize the Mongols a lot, in giving them an advantage, maybe a chop through, maybe some trade, maybe even some cheeky rush or something. We'll have to see what they do. I think it's mostly going to hinge on what the Mongols does is going to make this game interesting.
Yeah, now, looking at this map, this is one of the more unique team game maps. Players are separated from each other by default. How important do you think it is to start chopping early so you can reinforce your teammate or escape if you needed to? Sometimes you see players completely ignoring that. Sometimes you see a high emphasis from players on it. How important do you think is chopping through the forest?
I actually think it has a very high importance. Something I haven't done historically on this map is, because we played this in the Winter Team Championship. It was more of a 1v1 map, in my view, but I think now chopping through is very important, especially since you can reinforce your teammate. I think PuppyPaw and LaSh have to watch out if Anotand and Dark are doing that. They should definitely scout it, and if they see that, they're going to have to chop through as well, so they can help each other out.
All right, Chinese and English coming up here against the Mongols and Abbasids. Of course, we have to shout out Afreeca TV for sponsoring this event. They have put up the prize pool for this entire event. We are having a 2v2 of 16 teams here for this weekend and the next. This is our last event of EGC TV before the summer break. And it looks like we're jumping into the game already, or nope, we're just looking at the schedule. Producers just tricking us here for a brief moment, but here's the schedule for the first weekend. We will have Zerton and Nush versus Recon and Mattis as the second series, and then for the other two, we will have Beastie joining me. He's going to co-cast Baltune and Crackedy versus Core and Donati, and Marine Lord and Alyona versus Bee and Cat. So we do have both of the teams from the 3D clan making an appearance today.
Yeah, that fourth series is probably going to be a very good set, I would say, because Marine World and B, obviously some of the best players in the world, and I think that those teams in particular are very strong. Well, so are these ones, but I think every team is very strong, but that fourth series as well.
Yeah, that's one of the big things with this tournament, right? It's hard to predict who prevails because on paper, every single team has to be pretty much even to the other. That's kind of the storyline when it comes to the draft system of this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I would say there are some favorites, some, not as strong teams, but in general, every single team has a chance, I would say.
All right, let's see if Anotand and Dark has a chance to balance this out, to even out the odds. We're jumping into game number 2 on Jousting Fields. This is the home map of Anotand and the Dark. 1Puppypaw and LaSh do have a lead in this best of 5, and we will have a matchup of the Chinese and the English against the Mongols and the Abbasids.
Yep, I can hear the sheep.
That's always the indication for us to know when the game starts. Indeed, here we are. Puppy and LaSh versus Anotand and Dark. Puppy and LaSh do have a lead of 1 point in this best of 5. Anotand and Dark opted to go with this map as their home map. This is Jousting Fields. And as you see, the biggest takeaway from this map, something that has been introduced in the Winter Team Championship, is that the players are isolated from each other. So you have basically 2 separate 1v1s as long as the players do not chop through the middle wood line.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see how they do this. But the first thing I noticed is that Uvu from Anotand is like very far out in the map, and he's actually bringing the Jura towards it, which kind of makes me think he's maybe going for the chop upgrade, like if that's what he's going for instantly. Could be wrong, but I'll have to see.
It would be an intriguing idea, actually. You go back to some of the earlier tournaments, like last year. If you remember the map Woodwall, the first player to kind of pioneer that improved forestry type of an approach was actually B, who is a clan member of Dark and Anotand. So I assume that there were some strategy discussions in the entire clan. And when it comes to this map, and this being their home map, as you said, we could see something spicy from them. So I wouldn't be surprised either to see something like improved forestry coming in early. And there it is.
And there it is. And he already has the villager chopping through, so it might even be some aggression. I mean, it's definitely going to be some aggression and probably some trade coming in from Anotand and Dark. And that guy should be chopping through in no time.
I love this. I gotta say, I love this approach. We've talked about this one. As long as you don't chop through, you have no means of kind of turning the tides by numbers advantage to your side on either of sides of the wood line. It's 2 separate 1v1s, but when you have an early chop through like that, suddenly you could 2v1 a player and do a lot of damage before the opponent can react.
Yeah, I like it as well, and we're definitely probably going to be seeing some trade as well. In the previous season, you could do the trade trick, right? Which would mean that this strategy would not be as good because you can't really trade trick with a teammate. You can, but you need to be on their side, and you have the silver tree. It's just not really reliable, especially at the start of the game. So in this current season, you can't do the trade tricks, which means it will be even a better strategy.
Yeah, lovely call from you. I love this. And there's the trade wing. That's a clear indication, right? Like, when you started making this point about the trade, I was like, yeah, maybe we see it, maybe some silver tree, but I wasn't convinced. But then there's the trade wing, and indeed, that's going to be a lot of trade. I love this approach so far. They'll probably play a lot more defensive than you normally see players on this map, but the return of investment on that trade could come very fast. And that kind of explains this combination of civilizations here. You get Mongols because you want improved forestry, and you get the Abbasids so you have that trade wing to buff you. And of course, you can go Silver Tree as well with the Mongols if you want.
No, I wasn't even thinking about Abbasid. I was just like, Mongols is going to trade, Abbasid, whatever. But the Abbasid and Mongols both trading, that actually makes a lot of sense. They can actually trade with Silver Tree to the House of Wisdom, I think, right? Because the House of Wisdom now acts as a, or did, I think, before as well, act as a market.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And you see the chop through is already complete. Now, that passage is pretty narrow right now, so you probably want to widen it. And it will be scouted immediately by Puppy and LaSh. From a player perspective, how critical is it that you acquire this information?
Oh, it's 100% critical. It means the game, right? Because if you don't see this and you have no idea what's going on, you don't know how to respond. I suspect PuppyPaw and LaSh are maybe even try to wall this. Maybe that's a little bit ambitious, but they're definitely going to be reacting. They're definitely going to be probably playing a little bit more aggressive than they would be. So they definitely need to know what's going on here.
Yeah, Stone being mined by LaSh over here. He probably was thinking about the second TC, and he will probably continue on with those plans despite now being aware of the trade coming up. Silver Tree is on the way as well for Anotand, so this is just going to be essentially a full trade play from Anotand and Dark. Now, one of the things you highlighted is that with the trade wing, your House of Wisdom kind of acts as a market, right? So does the Silver Tree, so technically you don't even need a lot of markets being dropped.
Yeah, I wonder if is PuppyPaw trying to body block the traders? Is this PuppyPaw the 5-head?
Well, I think they
wonder
can
if this
pass.
worked.
Wop, wop, wop.
Oh, that's very sad to see. But if it worked, I would be cheering on Puppy right now. But sorry,
Yeah.
Puppy.
I mean, I'm just thinking about that SpongeBob meme, you know, the at least you tried one.
Yeah, very sad. I want to see the Silver Tree being moved as well. Maybe he's just waiting for the traders to get there, but you can definitely move this to the corner, right?
Yeah, probably. What's happening here? Dark may have not retasked these. Oh, he actually
he did
retasked them
now.
to the market in the corner just now. That's what happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Because, I mean, Dark should probably build another market, but Anotand, yep, he's moving that now, right? He's going to move the Silver Tree to the corner, so they're going to be getting the best trade possible. And PuppyPaw is actually going to try to wall this, and that's what I was saying earlier. If he can get this off, that's going to be huge. It's just going to delay trade for even that much longer.
I like this. He's got the Chinese, so this villager builds things very fast. And there's only one horseman from Dark. If he doesn't intercept this villager directly, the walls will complete, and it's going to be a pain in the rear to deal with.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to see
okay.
Anotand get another villager out here.
Yeah, Anotand is dropping a tower close by for the Yam network. Now, if you're Puppy, you probably don't stop at one layer. You just keep walling and walling and walling. Just make this as painful for 3D as possible.
Yeah, and that's what he's going to do, and that's probably why you saw him go into the forest before walling, right? And they have actually no way of killing this villager. Anotand is getting the villager now, so he can start chopping again, but this is going to be very annoying for Anotand and Dark to deal with.
It's a timing thing, right? Every second you delay those traders, it's immense value.
Yeah. And I'm not actually sure if PuppyPaw is going for a second TC. He may have, and I just didn't... Oh, I think he did, yeah. So behind this, they're getting a lot of eco themselves.
The horseman is in, and I think we may have overestimated the ability of this villager to stop the trade, because this villager from Anotand, with the improved forestry, he's gonna chop through pretty fast, and you see, even the gate was cancelled, villager goes down, and the trade continues on.
Well, it does continue on, but it was slowed down, and I would say it's definitely worth it. He's actually going to have vision of those traders for a bit, so not that it matters that much, but he will be able to know what's going on if they're heavily investing, which, you know, they probably are, but I think it's a good thing for them to have. Is that horseman trapped, or is just patrolling? I think it's just patrolling.
Yeah, he's just patrolling there. It's gonna be annoying. Love this little wall on the south, by the way. Just make sure that you don't get surprised. And now we're looking at a scenario where we have a 2TC boom from the English player, basically no commitment to army. A heavy Song Dynasty boom from PuppyPaw, again no commitment to an army. but you already have a functional trade, and oftentimes you see the trade pay off a lot faster than TC booms do. And now we have Anotand coming in with Knights. Do you think this is actually the case? Do you think that the return of investment comes in quicker for the trade compared to the multi-TC builds?
So, I think in the previous season that would be the case, but TC builds are actually, in my opinion, a little bit faster than trade. The benefit with trade is that you get those units out on the map faster, and we do see Anotand has units. Let's see if he can get a few Vil picks and maybe throw LaSh down, who actually hasn't really built any units. It was just PuppyPaw building the wall.
You know, these units you see over here, Vodka actually highlighted. I called them Lancers, but he kind of called me out with his mouse movement, just saying, hello there, Mr. Caster. You gotta call them by their name. They're now Keshiks available in Feudal Age, a Lancer-style unit, but they do heal as they fight. So one of the things that they do very well is raid those innocent villagers. Anytime they take a damage, they can make up for that by killing Vils.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about them, right? They're very they're strong units, but they also have a lot of utility and getting that health back, getting just Vil picks, and they're very nice units to use if you don't lose them.
That's true for most of the units, though. They're nice if you don't lose them.
These ones even stronger because they can heal themselves. But yes, in particular, you don't want to lose your units. Oh, who's aging here?
Military wing coming in for Dark.
Aging. That is a fast age, I would say. I guess he has a lot of traders, but that's gonna be before PuppyPaw, before... Oh, LaSh is aging as well, and he's probably going up with the King's Palace, right? 21 traders Dark has, so... I think everybody in this game has a pretty strong eco.
They do. You see at the top of the screen, we have 30+ traders for the team of Anotand. On the other side, of course, multi-TC Song Dynasty build. We will have a third town center as well for LaSh. Once he has the English farming eco online, that's obviously become a factor as well. And it looks like we will have a Chukonu push coming up here from PuppyPaw.
Yeah, PuppyPaw going 3TC Chukonu push. I'm not sure if that's the correct move, especially considering Dark is going to be Castle anytime soon. I doubt this army is going to do that much.
Yeah, he's got walls up as well. And I feel like with these Chukonus, when you have the walls, when you have Castle Age, Manganos could hold them off for the time being. And that would buy a lot of time for Anotand and Dark to address the problem.
Yeah, 100%. And you know something you pointed out at the start of the game, right? Chopping through to help PuppyPaw. They actually haven't started that at all. LaSh and PuppyPaw have not chopped through at all. So if Dark and Anotand wanted, they could probably just attack either PuppyPaw or LaSh and just 2v1 them. Like, there's not going to be any support on the other side.
Yeah, we are seeing signs of that, actually. Anotand has sent a couple of Keshiks to the side of LaSh, or actually PuppyPaw over here. They probably won't be able to do much against all these spears, but they do get an eyesight on the spears and the Chukonus massing up. So from now on, Anotand and Dark are aware of this. And it looks like we will have some walls coming up for LaSh as well. They want to focus all their attention on the other side. Eco numbers, when it comes to the overall eco, feels a lot better for Puppy and LaSh, but Puppy is yet to go to Castle Age. Anotand is on the way right now. And there's going to be the Kurultai. We talked about this in game number 1. You said it, Kurultai could also buff allies, and we have seen how 3D uses that in a previous game. We have seen how they use the Abbey to heal the Roost Knights. We could now see the Kurultai also being utilized on one side to gain an even larger advantage.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if that was not the case, right? Dark could probably just build a lot of towers or something, just bring his entire army to PuppyPaw's side, and it would be very debris, especially considering it'd be a 2v1.
Yeah, a couple of longbows are moving out over here. We have 6 Keshiks on the field for Anotand. He's also making a couple of archers, some crossbows. But on the other side, we have knights coming up. We have some camel riders coming up as well. Chukonus are creeping up, so do the spearmen, but it's only 7 spears to guard 24 Chukonus.
Yeah, and he's still not Castle Age, right? So I'm not sure. I don't think that fight is going to go well for him, especially. Well, he doesn't have any men-at-arms, so Gulam, sorry, is the new unit from Afreeca. Don't want to mistake that anymore. He's gonna get a few villager picks, but these units will go down by the Lancers.
Villagers for Abyss, it's something that they are willing to throw away over here. They do have the trade as well. Spearmen are gone, and you see this is what happens when you are facing Castle Age Cavalry and you do not have any spearmen or just very few spearmen to protect your Chukunu. This is a cleanup on the right side, and now you see the Kashyyyk are moving in. Kurotai buff on the way as well. Only a handful of spears here to praise, but once the spearmen are gone, even if you do some damage with these longbows, the Kashyyyk will heal up. And when you have a heavily armored unit against the longbows barely do any damage, and essentially all of that is being offset by the healing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're seeing now, which is what makes this unit so strong, especially against weaker numbers. You really don't lose any at all, and both Anotand and Dark have knights now. They are trying to push their advantage and secure their trade, which they're doing. I would like to see them probably try to 2v1. I guess they don't feel safe enough to which they feel like they can 2v1, so that might be the issue for them. Like, if he does push, can he really support his trade?
I think part of the equation here is that they don't even feel like they need to 2v1 at this point, because Dark is pushing back his opponent very well, and the same is happening on the other side. And at this point, if Dark is containing Puppypaw, who is still in Feudal Age, you know, LaSh, sure enough, he's Castle Age, but you look at LaSh's army, it's only 8 longbows, 5 men-at-arms, and he's going to face the Kurotai, so it's not even like Network of Castles will give him much of an advantage against that.
Yeah, 100%, and I do feel like it is a little bit of a missed opportunity, but you are right. I think it's looking pretty good for both of them. Well, the eco is in favor of Puppypaw and LaSh, but the traders are going to get just a lot of value right game, right? You're not even going to need that gold, which you don't have to push out for. And there's a limited amount of gold on this map, right? Once you have the gold, you have to trade.
That's a great point, actually. In fact, if you look at the gold spawns, especially for someone like LaSh, it's wide open at the front. And that's going to be something that he could be cut off from. Looking at the south, we have 20 Spearmen, 26 Chukanus for Puppypaw. But this is a full Feudal Age army. He's facing 24 Lancers, and now 16 Veteran Archers as well. It's getting dicey. They have doubled the eco on paper, but as you said, those traders are just so good of a value. Now Castle Age on the way for Puppy with the Clock Tower, but he's gonna be under a lot of pressure from this army here.
Yeah, Puppypaw must be sweating, man, because going Castle Age as China 16 minutes in the game is very, very dicey. Like, I would not want to be in that position myself. Puppypaw obviously a very good China pro, so he has more experience with that. He's actually getting a really, really, really good trade here. Trading Spearmen for Knights, you always want to be doing that.
Dark felt like he went a little too bloodthirsty there, just traded the spears, as you said, against the Knights. All the Knights went down. Now he's getting some villager picks over here, and he does have a force pushing in at the south. So there is definitely some value there. And to the north, we do have Anotand moving up as well. He's got the Kurotai buff, he's creeping up with towers as well. But Castle Age is in for Puppypaw. They still have a massive eco advantage, so if they somehow stabilize, they should have a realistic chance of turning this around, right?
Oh yeah, this game is nowhere near over. I would say if Dark probably took a little bit of a better fight on that end versus Puppypaw, he may be in a very commanding position, but that is not the case. Puppypaw is now Castle Age. It looks like he has a pretty good granary setup, so if he can defend this push again, he should be in a very good spot.
Defensive castle now on the way. This is a dicey spot here. Mangonel now setting up the fire on the longbows. Only a handful of villagers building this keep. And you see the keep stalled out for the time being. Villagers have to juke around here. There's a Springle Tower assisting as well. Mangonel getting a good shot on the longbows. Now the Kashyyyk charge in. They do take a great fight once again with no spearmen nearby. Castle still being built, but the process just seems too slow here. Mangonel could start focusing the villagers at this point, and it does just that. Villagers will get pushed away from the keep, and this one is not going up.
Yeah, and this is very bad. I feel like you need Spearmen versus Kashyyyks. They just trade so well versus like Men-at-Arms and Longwomen, right? Look at the healing. They're almost all full health again. Kind of crazy, but the Spearmen really, really are what you need versus Kashyyyks.
Yeah, now the Kashyyks will dive under the TC as well, trying to contest the second keep. And look at that, down south, Puppy's in the middle of a farm transition, and he's also in the middle of dying, frankly. all his Chukanus and Spearmen are gone. As we were looking at the fight to the north, we did have Dark push in, and you see it's only 6 Chukanus and a nest of bees remaining. Up north, there is nothing that stands in the way of this army. LaSh and Puppy just have no army left to defend with, and looks like that trade is paying off so well for Anotand and Dark. They are in a commanding position now.
Yeah, and look at the military, 91 to 20. That is, oh, and that's GG, I guess.
Oh, what a game! You love to see these unique strategies being brought in for the home maps of the players. This was the strategy going into this game right from the get-go. You get Mongols, so you get the improved forestry to chop through. You do have the Mongols as well for the Silvertree, of course. Abbasid trade as well. And then we anticipated the team of Anotand and Dark to just team up on one of the players from Puppy and LaSh. Instead, they just played 2 separate 1v1s, which were fueled by a very efficient trade economy.
Yeah, I was very surprised by how well that went for them. I thought they would be able, like, PuppyPaw and LaSh would be able to hold a little bit better. I think they got a little bit ambitious pushing out, but especially PuppyPaw with that triple TC against trade. Probably not the best move, but in the end, Dark and Anotand definitely played that very well. So, gotta give them credit for that game.
And with that, we do have an even scoreline. We are going onto the home map of Puppy and LaSh over here. They do have the option to select either one of their own home maps, or they can opt to pick the home map of Anotand and Dark as well. Looks like they will just go for Lipany, though. And as you see, there's a little EGC box under the name that just signifies that this is the EGC version of Lipany. So it is slightly different from what you see in the ranked map pool, and that is meant in a positive way. It's a little bit more balanced, especially because, if I'm not mistaken, there are some weird things with Lipany right now on the new patch.
Yeah, so I think EGC Lipany can spawn so I've tried this out a bit, and your pros can spawn very close to each other. So I think that's just the reality of having modded maps in 2v2s. You need to, as far as I know, you need to tune them for every single 2v2, 3v3 team game. It's not the same as just, you have a 1v1 map, it's a 2v2 map. It just doesn't translate the same way.
Well, we will have the Rus and the Abbasids in the hands of Puppy and LaSh. From the practice games that I've seen from them, Rus was one of their most commonly used civilizations. Abbasids is a classic as well, could be a great archer civilization, could also be a nice cavalry civ here, obviously fueled by the berries. And on the other side, we do have the Ottomans. Now, this is where an interesting question comes into play. You do not have any knights for Anotand or Dark in Feudal. So what do? Are you playing into the Sipahis with the Ottomans and the archers buffed by the Tower of Victory for the Delhi? Or are you playing into the Meter buffed archers and possibly the Ghazi Raiders with the Delhi?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. I think you can do both, right? Ghazi Raiders and Sipahi are both very good calves, so you could probably do either or, especially since both have archer buffs, right? So you're not really sacrificing any archer buffs. I do think, in my opinion, we probably will see Delhi go archers and Ottomans go Sipahi, just because I think it's a little easier for you to play the game without always having to worry about if you have a meta up or not. So those archers are always going to be buffed, and they don't have knights, right? So it's definitely going to be difficult for them. I think they're probably going to have to utilize walls a lot more.
Yeah, it's an intriguing question, especially if you consider that the Ghazi Raiders would provide more value when your opponent does have knights like the Rus. But as you said, one of the big factors when it comes to buffing those units is that the meta, it's going to be difficult to keep alive. We have seen in game number 1 how one player goes up to sometimes 100 archers even. In those cases, the meta can disappear in an instant.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw Ottomans go for the cav and then Delhi go for the infantry, especially since infantry can wall, right? And on Ripany, you can wall pretty easily. This map has a lot of mountains and such, especially you want to wall the sacred sites. Cut off the map in the 2v2 is very vital, especially against knights. I think they're probably going to have to... Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just think they're going to have to be pretty aggressive against Abbas and Roos, right? Both pretty eco boom civs.
Well, here we go. We do have game number 3 coming up. Anotand and Dark versus Puppy and LaSh. Right now it's an even Steven in this best of 5. We go to the first home map of Puppy and LaSh. They will have the Rus and the Abbasids. Against the Ottomans and the Delhi of Anotand and Dark, as you mentioned before, the deeper we go in this series, the less civilizations will be available. So that's one of the things that will be interesting to look at moving forward.
Oh, 100%. And I'm not surprised at all by PuppyPaw's picks for the most part. I'm PuppyPaw's brother, so I do know sort of what he's thinking there. And this matchup, I know they're very experienced in, and we're gonna have to see how this game goes because it may be tough for Anotand and Dark to find an advantage here, especially on Ripone.
Yeah, on a similar or somewhat similar map, Dry Arabia, the advantage was on the side of PuppyPaw and LaSh. We'll see how that goes here on Lipany. We're jumping into game number 2, or game number 3 actually. We will have Puppy and LaSh with the warm colors again, purple and red. And on the other side with the cold colors, teal and blue, we will have Anotand and Dark. Players are spawning very closely though, and this is a big difference compared to the Dry Arabia game that we have seen.
Yeah, and this is normal Ripone, right? So I guess this is normal. But they do spawn a little bit close, from what I see. But I do think Anotand and Dark's picks are very interesting. I do like their picks, especially considering food situation. Dark going to Ottomans isn't really going to have to rely on berries as much as Anotand does. So Anotand can kind of gobble up all the berries on the map, and Dark can rely on sheep, can rely on his landmark. I forget what it's called, but the berry landmark. And their food situation is going to be very, very good, even going into the raid game, I think.
Yeah, indeed. That's going to be intriguing to look at. We have a lot of berries to work with, but obviously we also have a lot of civilizations here that love to use berries. Abbasids, the Delhi, and of course, to a certain extent, even the Ottomans with the minaret landmark.
That one.
It's tricky to keep those landmark names in your head all the time, right?
Yeah, no, I pushed myself. It has too many names, man. Like Madrid, Madrasa, like I don't know. Like
Military school on the way for Dark. It's just gonna have a couple of spears coming around to poke, but looking at the player spawns, I'm not sure how much this spearman can accomplish. The distance between the base of Dark and the base of PuppyPaw just feels so great.
yeah, and you really can't focus anyone but PuppyPaw, right? Roos, there's just nothing to harass. So PuppyPaw, suspecting that will probably even go up with the military wing, which I would not. I'm almost 100% sure he will go military wing, and he'll be able to push that spearman back.
Yeah, looks like for the time being, let's talk about those maps though, because we have a bit of a peaceful moment, not something that we'll have a lot of in a 2v2. How do you feel about these map spawns? Like, we're looking at Puppy over here as he's going up to the military wing. Talk about those berry spawns. Holy potatoes.
Yeah, that is very... Look at... That's like 3 berry spawns within Puppy's main TC, which... Very, very nice for him. I suspect he's probably going to be going double TC into a very heavy army, so that those berries are going to help out producing a lot. And he is going up with military wing. No surprise there, especially against Ottomans and Delhi, right? 2 aggressive civs that you kind of need to build a very, very big army for.
Yeah, Dome of Faith on the way here for Anotand, so he's not going to play into the Tower of Victory. What do you think about this? What's the mindset between choosing, or when it comes to choosing between the Tower of Victory or the, whichever landmark he's building, and I forgot the name, Dome of Faith. Yeah, like, this is one of those scenarios where you have 2 landmarks, both of them are viable, and we know how they are generally used. One of them is more useful for the scholar production, the other one is more useful for aggression with the archers. But what's the deeper mechanic behind selecting either of these 2?
Well, I guess... First of all, I guess I'm wrong, right? I think seeing the Dome of Faith, Anotand's probably going more into Ghazi Raiders, because if he was going heavy archer, he would need that Tower of Victory. So we're probably going to be seeing Dark going for the heavy archers and Anotand going for the cav. And maybe he's just doing that because they do have that bonus versus armored units, right? So maybe that's just the sole reason. And the Dome of Fate definitely going to help him do that. Going to get those skulls out a bit easier, and won't need to pay double for skulls.
Yeah, we talked about this in the pregame. I'm just mentioning this for the YouTube audience.
No.
Either of these players can play into the cavalry. Sipahis and Ghazi Raiders are both very good in this situation, but it's very likely that only one of these two players will play Cav and the other one is going to play Archer. And as you mentioned, seeing that we don't have any Tower of Victories coming up here for the Delhi player, it feels more like that we are seeing Ghazi Raiders combined with Ottoman Archers, and probably no Sipahis for the initial part of the game.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely correct there. And Rash is actually going to go for a second TC, which against Delhi, not super popular, right? The first game we saw Delhi, and Jock and Anotand decided not to go for that second TC, but in this game, PuppyPaw and Rash, considering they have the Abbasid, right? Definitely going to need to go for that double TC on both ends.
Now, in the military school, we do have a Sipahi queued up, and one of the things to note with that building is that Sipahi is an expensive unit, so getting it for free is good value. Military went on the way, by the way, so we do have some spears and archers coming up here. Could you see a possibility of Dark and Anotand both playing cavalry? Would that actually make some sense for them?
Well, that might even out the cav advantage on PuppyPaw's side, right? Because of the Roost Knights. So maybe they're just trying to, if they both double produce cav, they won't struggle as much as doing with the Knights. So I definitely could see that happening, yeah. I think there definitely needs to be an Archer core, and given that Anotand did go for the Dome of Faith, I think Dark is mostly still going to focus on Archers, but as you said, probably will produce cav from just those military schools because it is so much more efficient.
Here comes the
Yeah,
second
these
town
TCs,
center. Yeah.
yes, they're going up very fast, right?
Yeah, second TC for LaSh, and PuppyPaw has been mining stone as well. So both of the players on Puppy's team will be playing into two TCs. Also kind of means that they need to play a little bit more defensive, possibly. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to just justify this eco investment. But that's also going to be somewhat troublesome to do when the Delhi player can just quickly take map control and grab the sacred sites.
Yeah, and I think they will be getting Sacred Sites, Anotand's team, and PuppyPaw and Rash, you know, they have Abbasid, they kind of need to go double TC anyway, like, you really can't play one TC Abbasid, it doesn't work very well. So, given that, Rash decided to say, okay, we're going to probably have to give up Sacred Sites anyway, I'll go double TC, and we'll both have an eco advantage.
It's an intriguing concept. Now, given that neither of them go for spears, there is definitely a window here for Anotand and Dark to both play cavalry. Normally, when both the players just play cavalry and you don't have any archers, the opponent or one of the opponents can just go spears and you could get punished for it. But given that we have a very heavy eco focus for Puppy and LaSh, Anotand could exploit this. They both have cavalry, so they can secure map control quickly. They can make adjustments very quickly to the enemy moves. And as you said, that can translate into 2 or even 3 sacred sites being controlled.
Yeah, and I think we will see that early game. I'm very surprised that Dark hasn't started going into more heavy Archer production. I mean, I'm excited to see how it goes, but I feel like Archers, especially in Age of Empires, is usually the backbone of your army, right? We usually see, especially in 1v1s, like 60 Archers at a point, just kiting away from each other, but maybe in 2v2s it's different, and these guys have a different idea of how to play it.
Yeah, if you look at the base layout of Dark and the idea that most of his military production is coming from the military schools, you kind of see why he's playing into the Sipahi. If he wanted to play archers, it would take a long time to build up those masses, unless he makes a range or two to actually produce from resources. But I'm actually starting to wonder if he's thinking about Castle Age here. He basically spent no resources on army, and he's not going through TCs. What else could he be spending his resources on? Yeah, look at that.
That's a good point. Yeah, he is thinking about Castle Age. That's interesting. Might be the correct move, especially since they want knights, right? And PuppyPaw and LaSh both went second TC, so they can definitely afford to go Castle Age.
Yeah, good moves over here by the Knights of LaSh, though they will intercept the first Scholar. You have 6 of them on the field, so this one loss isn't going to be a disaster. for Anotand, but it definitely slows down taking control of those sacred sites. And when it comes to those sacred sites, every second matters. You see, Ghazi Raiders try to loop around at the back, but there is a wall to prevent them from doing so. Good surround on the villagers. Great value for the Ghazi Raiders of Anotand. He's going to get a couple of picks here. Lumber Camp got deleted so the villagers could flee. I think at least 3 of them went down, possibly even more.
Yeah, that's a very nice surround, and that was kind of cute by Puppypaw doing the rum camp. That's not something I would think of, but he still got probably 2 or 3 villagers, right? So good pick off by him.
And look at the other side. Dark is going up with the Istanbul Imperial Palace. Not something that you see every day. Most of the time you see the Ottoman player using the Imperial Armory. This time around we will see a landmark that's rarely utilized, especially in 1v1s.
That is a bit interesting. Yeah, the other landmark, sorry, gives free siege, which is just very, very strong, and this Istanbul Imperial Palace does not, which probably leads me to think he's going to have a more cav focus, and he's already had that cav focus for the most part, so I think seeing some knights out of Dark is not going to be surprising at all to us.
Alright, I'm gonna throw this at you. What does this landmark do? Do you know this trivia thing? Like, as you said, it's not something that's commonly used. What is this landmark for?
So, I could be wrong, but I think it gives you 2 additional Vizier points, and it increases... Yes, it double increases experience around the landmark. So, it's pretty useful long term, and if you're not... If you need those double Vizier points, then yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's a good trivia question, actually. I had to Google this myself to check out what it does, but then Vodka showed it to us. Anyway, we do have some nitrates moving in here from LaSh. They do have a steady villager lead of 20, but we have 3 sacred sites under the control of Anotand's team, and as much as the timer still shows 9.5 minutes, you gotta respect that if you're Team LaSh. That can quickly go down to 0. Right now they're doing a good job decapping them, however.
Yeah, they actually just neutralized the sacred site, and might get another one at the top there. Should be, right? But surprisingly, Anotand has now gotten Castle Age himself, so we're probably going to be seeing double knights from both of these guys. Going actually House of Running, which even signals more knight play, because you want the additional knight damage from the upgrade, so Puppypaw will probably see this and be switching into Spearman soon. I would think so.
Archers kiting back towards those Sipahi getting picked off, however. The Meter wasn't damaged, which is a crucial thing here for Dark. But it looks like this big mass of archers is starting to thrive, and you see, there is some light cavalry from Anotand and Dark, but that's a lot of archers. So much so that they can almost one-shot this cav. And it's getting a little dicey for Anotand's team. They're down by 30 wills. They've lost all 3 sacred sites. Puppy and LaSh are walled back at home. And now you see knights and a large group of archers moving up.
Yeah, and this definitely feels a little ambitious on the side of 3D team. Puppypaw and LaSh shouldn't be that far behind in getting Castle Age themselves, and they really have a stronger ego, right? 40 plus villagers with 0 sacred sites at the moment. Granted, they did have sacred sites for a bit, and they're probably picking up a few relics here and there, but being on double TC this entire game is really going to put them at an advantage if Anotand and Dark can't find some damage soon.
Yeah, preemptive Vololo coming in over here. LaSh trying to get the charge going. Needs to be careful with this.
Ooh.
Will pull out the knights just in time.
That was very close. I could have seen that going either way, actually.
Yeah, that was
That's
like
one of those.
that was a split-second difference.
Yeah. Picking off a few archers, nice again. Gonna need a bit more than that, I think. But this is kind of the period where you have that knight advantage. You need to be getting some damage, and Puppypaw not going to be aged up for a bit. Has started that eco wing, but there's a vulnerability at the moment for them, I would say.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but now he's got Castle Age coming in with the economy wing. That will not only unlock... Actually, yeah, he's got military wing, so he should be able to get composite bows when he gets up to Castle Age. And that's going to be a big game changer for all these Abbasid archers.
Oh, 100%. That composite upgrade is just so much stronger. It's actually 33%. I thought it was 20%, like Tower of Victory, but it's 33%, and it is very, very good. If you're Abbasid and you're in Castle Age, you should get that composite upgrade.
A lot of knights out here, however. Look at that. 13 knights already by Dark. and those are being buffed by the meta as well. If those numbers start rising, that could be a little problematic for LaSh and Puppy to deal with, especially because LaSh is still in Feudal Age.
Yeah, at the moment we see no sign of him going up, right? He's just trying to amass as many cav as possible. And he's buying a lot of time, actually, just wasting Dark's time chasing these knights around so Puppypaw can get up to that castle age. And Phalix is actually coming for Puppypaw, so he's gonna have a spearman answer to all these knights.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you need it, because if you look at Anotand's side, he's mostly playing cavalry. We also have cavalry from Dark. It's kind of chasing away these knights, preventing the villagers from being slain. We have a couple of men-at-arms from Anotand, but not a lot. So, as you said, those spearmen with phalanx can be a game changer, and you see the production is massive. He's up to 22 spears in just a blink of an eye.
Yep. Abbasid production in Castle Age. Abbasid is really, very, very strong in Castle Age. So I almost expect at this point, Abbasid is going to sort of even take control of the game. We'll see how Puppy deals with them, but he's gonna need to help LaSh get Castle Age, right? Because LaSh still hasn't started that.
Yeah, LaSh, you see at the bottom left, this is his POV. He's just now going to have the resources he needs for Castle Age. He's been building up his knight numbers steadily, though, taking some good fights in here. High Trade House on the way as well. Now those archers do have the Castle Age upgrades for Puppypaw. He's got a lot of spears. And I don't see any siege coming in for Anotand and Dark. Don't forget, there is not even the Imperial Armory for the Ottoman player to make mangonels with. Suddenly, this composition feels difficult to deal with for Anotand and Dark.
Yeah, they really don't have an answer to these spearmen, right? And they have a few men-at-arms, but nothing substantial to deal with this, so very scary to deal with the Abbasid, I think. And LaSh is actually going up with the high trade house now, so he's not even that far behind. Looking very good for Puppypaw team.
Yeah, this is a bit of a surround here by Anotand and Dark, but you see you have a lot of spears, and those bad boys are crazy. Look at that, the Ghazi Raiders just melt in an instant. Army numbers now looking a lot better for LaSh and Puppypaw. They clean up most of the Ghazi Raiders. Still have quite a lot of Lancers over here from the Ottoman player, though. No crossbows, at least not on this screen. No spearmen nearby, but the archers do get away. And we still have 19 knights on the field for LaSh. Double the army now for their team.
And they're picking up some villagers in the corner of the map. I guess they want berries, right? And I don't think Anotand or Dark have gotten any farms, so they're still very heavily invested into the food on the map, which is going to make their resources even more vulnerable now. LaSh is doing a great job at continuing raiding those eco sources.
Yeah. One of the matters went down from Dark. He lost one of the two. On the other side, Anotand and Dark, they're falling behind so much in eco. They're down by 80 now, or 75 actually right now. But they don't have any of the sacred sites, they don't really have a lot of relics. So that is pure and pristine villager and eco advantage for Puppy's team.
Yeah, 100%. Gonna be difficult for them to even... I mean, they're down in archers. They do have the knight advantage at the moment, but Puppypaw also has 34 spearmen, so it's gonna be difficult for them to clear up this army, I must say.
Yeah, it's getting dicey. The gold mine is now being pressured from the Ottoman player's side. Knights are roaming the back of Anotand's base, and you see villagers just idling over there. So many casualties.
Oh.
Now the knights come in, but those spearmen do have phalanx. Crossbows firing from the back line as well. That's gotta be a cleanup. That's gotta be a rout. Dark won't be able to hold that position. You see the crossbows, they will just massacre all the knights. The Meteor will be flanked, and this is just looking very grim right now for Dark. He's getting pushed inside his base. Their team combined for 40 army only now.
Yeah, and you think it's trash units, Archer Spearmen, right? But from Abbasid, these are like pristine units. They got the Archer upgrade, they got the Phalanx. Yeah, it is not looking good for Anotand and Dark, and that's GG.
What a game, what a game. And you see, we've been talking about how the Ottomans and the Delhi can synergize. It really didn't feel like this double cavalry play helped a lot for them to secure those sacred sites. It didn't really swing the battle in their favor enough to justify for missing out on the double DC builds that the opponents have been doing.
Yeah, I think well, you know, they tried a new strat. They tried double cav, double age up. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And just like you saw in the previous game, in the manga game, their strat worked. So they're probably just trying new things, trying to not metagame, but like trick PuppyPaw and LaSh, and in this game, unfortunately, you know, it didn't work for them.
And with that, Puppy and LaSh move on to a match point. We are going into, I guess, a fan favorite map to a certain extent. Some people love it, some people hate it. Same applies for players. We have mountain clearing coming up. Anotand and Dark will play the Malians in the HRE. We will have the HRE as well for PuppyPaw's team, but they will supplement that with the Mongols. Which of these combinations do you like more?
I do like manga HRE more in this matchup. I mean it's a strange map to pick mangas on, just because you're not really gonna be using those Kesheks, right? Especially in a map this small. But it's gonna be hard for Anotand and Dark in the Dark Age to deal with that manga spearman pressure, I think.
Interesting idea. Indeed, one of the things to consider here is that Mulligans, they will play into those pit mines, even in Dark Age. But when you have the Mongol spearmen out there, they can torch down those houses very fast. And compared to, let's say, an English man-at-arms pressure, they do get rewarded for it. Setting those houses on fire is immensely valuable for a Mongol player.
Oh, 100%. I almost wonder if Anotand and Dark are probably going to either be going Donzos or Spearman from the HRE side. I think Donzos may be the better option. It is going to slow down your gold income, but you really have to deal with these manga Spearmen. They just cause havoc in your game. There's going to be a tower up. They're going to be getting the bounty. You really just cannot let them do whatever they want, right?
Yeah, that's indeed an interesting topic because Mongols have been used up already by Anotand and Dark. They won the game with that. That was game number 2 on Jousting Fields, Mongols and Abbasids. But now they don't have it, and on a very close map like this, that Mongol Dark Age pressure can be devastating. And think about it this way, it's not just the fact that the Mongol player by itself can do a lot of damage, but if the Mongol player can force both of the opponents to react or just create enough diversion, the HRE player can just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, if that is the case, that is very good for LaSh. I don't know who's playing HRE, obviously, but because if the HRE player gets to do whatever they want, they get that faster timing, they get their relics out, they get, you know, the sacred site. It's very beneficial on a map this small. Those very small advantages have huge implications.
Now, interesting question to you. We have seen in the Elite Classic how players love to move out towards the boar, sometimes at the HRE if they're not facing the English. Could you see PuppyPaw and LaSh combining the Mongols and the HRE, not only to pressure the opponents with the Mongol Dark Age spears, but also to secure the boar in the middle for the HRE player?
That's an interesting question. They could. I actually don't know if that's what they're gonna do. I wouldn't personally, just because Malians and the HRE could respond themselves with Spearmen, but getting that extra bowl, that 2k food, is a big deal. So, especially if you could build a tower there as well and get on that sacred site, that could be a very good advantage for them in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, we just have a couple of seconds left to go. Before we jump into this game, let's take a quick look at the brackets, though, because it's going to be interesting to see who PuppyPaw and LaSh will play if they win this game and if they advance to the next round. Here are the brackets. It's a single elimination bracket, but we do have best of 5s in both round of 16th and the quarterfinals. And I'm just going to have to find Puppy and LaSh. You can see them at the bottom of the screen. Anotand and Dark versus Puppy and LaSh. State and Sort of, and I Am Magic and Maito, one of those two teams will be their opponents in the next round if they win this.
Yeah, and I think those two teams are very strong teams, right? State and Sort of are both, I would say, pretty solid top 16 players. State didn't play in the last tournament, the Elite Classic, but both very strong players. And Magic and Maito, maybe underdogs in just straight up rank, but I think I practiced against them a lot, and they're very strong. They're a very strong team.
All right, we do have the game up, or at least we're very close to it. Match point for PuppyPaw and LaSh against Anotand and Dark. Last time that Anotand and Dark were behind in score, they managed to even it out on Jousting Fields. But here we go. It is their last home map. We are jumping into Mountain Clearing. PuppyPaw and LaSh will be spawning with red and purple with the Mongols and the HRE, and to the left, or more like to the northern side of the map, we will have Anotand and Dark with blue and teal having the HRE and the Malians.
Yep, and this is Anotand Dark's home map, as you mentioned. So maybe they have a few strats up their sleeve. We definitely saw that in the Jousting Fields game, so I would not be surprised at all if they come up with something sneaky.
They kind of have to, especially if you consider that with the civilizations that were used in the previous games, PuppyPaw and LaSh will have the Malians available for the final game on their own home map, and that's scary. Your home map coming up in a decider game, you have the Malians, which is known to be extremely powerful, even after the changes that were implemented in Season 5. You really need this game for Anotand and Dark. Well, of course, it's also match point for your opponent, so this game is going to be critical, but even if you win this, it's going to be a little challenging to turn this set around.
Well, I could be wrong. The final game would be Malians, Ottomans versus China French. So I think, I mean, French is definitely a strong save as well. So I don't think they're that disadvantaged, but yeah, both teams gonna have decent picks for the final map. And we actually see Dark Age Spearman coming out for PuppyPaw, so no surprise. We actually I don't think we've seen Boax from either side of Dark or Anotand, so they really don't have a defense for that at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like Barracks is just now coming in here for Dark. He knows he needs to protect those gold mines. His pit mine is going to be at the back, so that buys him a little bit of extra safety, as we do have a bit of a dance around here between the HRE Scout and, of course, the Khan of PuppyPaw. He's trying to just deny that push, and it looks like we do have the double spears coming in from PuppyPaw. What's the primary target over here for him? We talked about this in the pregame. Is he going to go for the boar in the middle? Or is it going to be a push towards the pit mine right away?
Well, I would say usually it would be Malian target because you want to get that bounty, but PuppyPaw is actually sending his spearman to the middle, so I'm not sure where he's deciding to go at the moment, but I guess he's probably scouted the Donzos at the moment, but he still should have an advantage for a bit, given that the Donzos don't double produce, so I am curious as well to see where PuppyPaw is going.
Yeah, one thing to consider here is that you're getting a massive discount on your spears when you double produce them compared to the Donzos. It looks like the boar was aggroed in the middle, so someone is playing around with that. It might have been the Khan or the Scout, possibly the Scout of Dark trying to aggro it to harass the spears with. But now the spearmen are coming up, and indeed he's going to try and aggro the boar again. There was a very sad moment where Dark played against LaSh in the Silver League of the Elite Classic. I don't want to remember that. Unfortunately, Dark probably will. He tried to kill a boar with a Scout and 2 spears. Ended up in a disastrous fashion.
Yeah, that does not sound... Because spearmen do surprisingly pull versus a bull. I don't know why, but you really need like 8 or... at minimum 6 villagers to deal with these bulls. They're very deadly.
Yeah, it's tricky because we talked about this at the beginning of this set. Dark mostly played AoE 2 for the last 1 year. And in AoE 2, the boars, they are a little more forgiving than they are in AoE 4, so that can be a little tricky and deceiving. Dark just came back to AoE 4 like a month and a half or so ago. Yeah. Granted, the fact that he reached a top 25, top 20 level in such a short time and with so little experience playing the game is impressive.
He was, I mean, he's a pretty solid player, right? He's pretty young as well, if you don't know. Dark is like 18, I think, so there's a lot of potential in Dark, I think.
Yeah, and he's been playing competitively for years now. He started at like the age of 15, so he's actually one of the youngest but most experienced players. Definitely a rising star, both in AoE 2 and AoE 4, actually.
Yeah, so very good player all around. Not actually going to get a lot of damage done here, PuppyPaw. I guess that the gold is in range of the TC, and this tower rush by PuppyPaw really has not done that much, I would say. Now, the pasture here is a little cheeky.
Yeah, he's going to buff his teammate here with a pasture, just feeding him sheep. It's actually placed right next to stone outcropping, so he will be able to place an OVU on top to buff the pastures with. But as you said, the spearmen themselves, they accomplished very little. They might find a bit of a harassment opportunity over here on the lumberjacks, though.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this. So the old mountain clearing used to not have these like snaky kind of forests to go through, and Puppypaw is utilizing these snaky wood lines very well, sneaking spearmen in along Dark's base, and Dark is going to be slow to respond with the Donzos. Might burn this down, probably not though before the Donzos arrive. At the very minimum, is getting a lot of villager either time, right?
Yeah, setting it on fire is enough for him to get the bounty, but the Donzos arrive in time, and this is a good reaction by Dark over here. As you said, if there were no Donzos, all these houses right next to the pit mine could have been set on fire, and that's a lot of bounty for the Mongol player. But one thing that this is accomplishing is buying time for LaSh to just play a fast castle, although it looks like Anotand will pretty much match that castle age time, given that he wasn't really harassed by these spears.
Yeah, HRE timings look pretty similar. Maybe in a better case scenario for Pugpod's team, they could have slowed down Anotand a bit, but Anotand is actually aging first, so yeah, looking very good for them at the moment.
And it's gonna be a Burgrave build over here for LaSh. Let's see what the choice is on the other side. Looks like we're gonna have a double Burgrave build. One of the big differences I'm spotting, though, is that when it comes to sustainability in terms of the food eco, the sheep will be there for Puppypaw, so he's gonna be fed. I do not know if Dark is planning to produce cattle and supplement Anotand with that.
Very possible, but there were a couple patches ago, if you remember, the cattle bonus for your partner actually is very much reduced in comparison to yourself. So if he does decide to go with that option, the cattle gather rate is not as good for your partner, and he does decide to give him some cattle, as we see.
Yeah. At least you don't have to transition to farms, so there is that. Looks like Khan is trying to stop some walls over here. Dunsus will throw the spears, so he is gonna get pushed away, but we do have a couple of archers moving in here. And as much as we didn't really see those spearmen do a lot of damage, those guys could get a villager pick or two, maybe.
Yeah, Pugpaw just trying to get as much damage done as possible before the Burgrave hits. Now, the Burgrave is going to cause, I think, things to go a little hectic here, because Pugpaw probably won't be able to get as much damage done. These archers are going to die to, like, 1 man-at-arms now, so I would suspect both of them to... Sorry, Dark and Pugpaw both to go into Castle Age themselves.
Yeah, a couple of Musafari warriors are being added by Dark, so he's going to try and just supplement Anotand here with a unit that hard counters those men-at-arms. But we do have the archers sneaking in here, and once again, Puppypaw could do a lot of surprise damage. Quick reactions come in from our blue player Anotand. He is going to pull away all wills, not a single one killed here.
Yeah, that's very annoying for Anotand, which just means LaSh is going to be able to probably outproduce Anotand on men-at-arms, because he obviously doesn't have a food income.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? Even just a couple of seconds of idle time can be the difference maker between these men-at-arms, and there's one big difference as well. The men-at-arms from LaSh do have the maces. That's not something that's available for Anotand, which means that LaSh's men-at-arms will just absolutely shred the ones coming out from Anotand.
Yeah, and maces you 100% need. Obviously, both units, men-at-arms against men-at-arms, are both armored, so maces are going to do even more damage. Yeah, and they're trading so well, look at this. Even under the TC. May have to back off here, given that he has a lot more than him, but did trade better.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage being done. They tried to camp down the Burgrave to intercept the new men-at-arms. A couple of villagers were also caught in there. And you see, as you said, the maces, it gives bonus against heavily armored units, like the men-at-arms. So in a men-at-arm versus men-at-arm fight, it's so much needed. It's just now finished for Anotand, but by the time it arrives, most of his men-at-arms are now gone. Archers will just dive underneath the TC, and the gold mine has to be evacuated.
Yeah, and this is just slowing down Anotand's economy even more, right? We do see Dark going up for Castle Age himself, so instead of deciding to help out Anotand, he's going to get units himself. But Anotand is suffering a lot here. That's 6 villagers going down, it looks like.
That's devastating. You see, his villagers on the food were idle. Vodka pointed out to us that there was basically no food income. Now the archers are picking villagers on the gold mine. This might be over, Wam.
Yeah, at this point he's just getting overrun, right? Like, Dark going up is not going to save his teammate. Maybe in the long term, but he has like 20 villagers to work with. It's going to be a 2v1 almost.
Oh, it's so devastating. 32 army versus 8. And the
Oh
Man at
my
Arms
god.
flood just stopped from Anotand. It's still coming from LaSh. Now he's fighting under the TC. Anotand is as good as dead at this point. They do tap
Wow.
out, and with that, Puppypaw and LaSh move on to the next round. Very convincing gameplay from them, finishing off this mountain clearing game in a very swift fashion.
Yeah, that was very well played by them. Puppypaw and Rash focusing that HRE prayer, cutting off the food, cutting off the gourd. Antan just he just had nothing by the end of the game.
Oh, what a series, really. We have seen some crazy games. This one was very swift, just below 12 minutes in length. But when you go back to this entire series, especially the intensity of game number 1, with all these longbows, all those trades, how the kings were used, how cheeky the trade was for Anotand and Dark, but then Puppy and LaSh just felt a little bit more convincing throughout the entire set.
Yeah, and I feel Puppypaw and LaSh are a very strong team, have a very good chance of even making the making the semis and the finals. I think they're definitely one of the favorites for this tournament.
Yeah, they've been grinding a lot.